Oh, a lot of political videos today. Don't you guys love politics? Don't you guys love to be bombarded by Papa Gut with political conversation constantly? No, I just saw this. It seemed like an interesting watch. It's quick. It's only about 19 minutes. Thanksgiving isn't racist. Change my mind. Okay, cool. I mean, I think it has racist roots. I don't think that people are actively engaging in that racism now. I think it's fine to acknowledge that. Okay.
I mean, I think that Thanksgiving, honestly, is the least exclusive holiday. Christianity, Christianity would exclude people of other religions.
Secular.
Ramadan would exclude people of other religions. You can take your pick from any of the religious holidays. Thanksgiving is be thankful for what it is that you do have.
There's a lot of salt in Ramadan. I can't have too much of it. I do like the miso Ramadan though. That's pretty good. Or yeah, I like what are those thick noodles called? It's not even Ramadan. It's the thick noodles, the thick Asian noodles. You know what I'm talking about? Udon noodles. My wife popped in just to tell me udon, or Udon, the noodles. Very funny. Very funny.
Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Buddhist,
you and your family going to talk about what happened to the Native Americans?
I mean, we've talked about
I wouldn't switch to Rumble. I was joking.
it all throughout my life, and I learned about it.
Are you going to talk about what happened to the Native Americans?
I mean, we've talked about it all throughout my life, and I learned about it in school.
Are you going to acknowledge it at the dinner table?
I don't know.
I probably wouldn't. Because, I mean, like, first of all, boring. No, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know. Like, I feel like that's not a dinner table conversation. I think from a social, societal level, it's a good thing to acknowledge. But at the fucking dinner table, bro, I don't want to have let me have a conversation with my fucking uncle about politics. No, I'm here to eat and fall asleep. I'm not here to talk about, these issues. I mean, I get it. They're important. But like on an individual I don't need to talk to my family about it. Next Halloween. Next Thanksgiving, we're going to sit down and say, hey, guys, we fucking killed so many indigenous people. God bless. And then start eating. Like, what do you want me to say? I feel like it's fucked. It's pretty fucked,
Do I have to?
You should.
Well, thank you for telling me what I should and should not do in my personal time.
You're welcome.
And you wouldn't think that is that at all in any way is overstepping bounds or being pushy?
No, I mean, okay, like that's just like such a weird kind of coward perspective. Like, listen, you could be like, okay, I just disagree, and here's why. But he's like, well, thanks for telling me what I should do. It's like, relax, dude. It's okay. Like, you're going to survive. Like, it's okay for people to say, I believe this, and you say, I believe that. And you're being very sensitive to criticism. It's bizarre. She's a little aggressive for sure. But like, you're just like, that's like a baby. Oh, thanks for telling me what I should believe. Oh, relax, dude. Like, people tell each other what they should believe all the time. Like, it's called it's exchanging of information.
No.
Okay.
I don't.
All right, well, maybe you should discuss with your family the history that you learned that wasn't accurate.
Bro, maybe you should how the fuck are you so famous and you have the worst fucking audio setup ever?
That you brought here to the table. And maybe you can all get an accurate account of what happened historically. And maybe discuss as well the acts of barbarism that still go on since you're Muslim across the Islamic world. What was your name?
Okay. Jesus Christ. That's... Jesus, that was something. I just the context of that kind of felt like a deflection there. It's like, yeah, we should acknowledge a few things in the past. Just because she's Muslim doesn't mean that she supports some of the bad rhetoric in like Muslim countries. That's just the reality. Jesus, fuck, that seemed a little like much, but okay.
Safa, nice to meet you. Steven, nice to meet you.
Okay, let's see what the context of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you know the topic of discussion today. I know that we're often taught, especially in schools, Columbus Day, Thanksgiving, that's a racist holiday. I don't agree. I think it's a wonderful...
I don't know. I don't really hear it's a racist holiday. I hear it has some racial origins. I don't know if I've heard the mainstream argument of that, but
full holiday that should unify the nation. I think it has done me good. Will do me good. I say God bless it. Happy Thanksgiving. Okay. And if you disagree, you're more than welcome to change my mind.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So
if you want to scooch in, you can't. So you don't have to lean. Yeah.
So Thanksgiving is actually my favorite holiday as well.
Oh.
I think that
cool.
where it gets controversial.
Why? That's kind of lame. It used to be my favorite when you would eat the food and then go to Black Friday shopping. But all of a sudden, some people were getting trampled. Oh, it's unfair to have workers work on a holiday. Like, bro, do you think I give a fuck? You think I'm getting fucking trampled at 6'4", 350 pounds, dude? I'm the trampler. Okay? I'm the fucking trampler. I'm walking in and I'm fucking shit up. All right? I want that 50% off PlayStation bundle. That's what I want, motherfucker. I don't give a damn.
Is the origin story that we're taught about it?
Sure.
That Native Americans and Pilgrims peacefully got together
Sure.
and
Okay.
shared a meal, and that's the story that kids are taught. That's kind of the narrative that we push, especially now that you're dressed as a pilgrim.
I appreciate that you recognize the garb. This wasn't all for naught.
But I saw a video that was made in 2015, and it's from cut.com. And it's a video that is a series of interviews that they interview Native Americans, and they ask them to describe Thanksgiving in one word, right?
Sure.
And
That's fair. Like, yeah, I don't think that we should teach kids it was like this amazing event. We should teach it like it was. It was pretty fucked.
these people say massacre, racist, false holiday,
Sure.
unpeaceful, these kinds of things. So I think if we're asking Native Americans how they feel about the holiday, and that's what they're saying, then shouldn't we listen to them?
Oh, sure.
That's fair.
You can listen to them. Doesn't mean that that's what the holiday is.
Okay, so
before we get to, why is it your favorite holiday?
Okay, I think that. I guess I just disagree with Crowder. That sounds reasonable. I think that we could disconnect the history of Thanksgiving from the holiday that's celebrated today. I genuinely feel that way. But I think it's good to acknowledge the past. I think that it's not the same as it used to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like the holiday today isn't that anymore. If it was like we should ban Thanksgiving because indigenous people were upset, I don't think I would agree with that. But we should educate young kids about the horrors of it rather than, give them a silly little turkey story, So
I really like cooking and eating, and that's what the holiday is about for me. It's about.
And it seems like she's doing that by liking the holiday, and she's even going to say this is what the holiday is about for me, and she's, I guess like reclaiming the holiday in some capacity. I guess you could say something like that. You know what I mean? She's like, it doesn't mean that to her, but she wants people to. It doesn't mean the aggression anymore to her, but she doesn't want people to forget that. This is fair.
Giving thanks to the people in my life. I just think that when people talk about how Thanksgiving,
what are you most thankful for?
I guess being able to go home to my family and having that meal. Yeah, right. But I think that when people are talking about how Thanksgiving is controversial, that's what they're talking about. So how do you come back to that?
Well, it's incorrect.
It's incorrect. Okay.
Yeah, it's incorrect. So Thanksgiving is a celebration of in the 1620s when the Pilgrim settlers did have a meal of Thanksgiving with the I think it's pronounced Wampanoag. Is that, do you know? I want to make sure I'm getting that right. Wampanoag. And they did celebrate and then had 50 years of peace after that. Now, if we want to talk about the fact that there have been some acts of barbarism committed.
Some acts?
Yeah, of course. Committed against Native Americans, and of course.
There's been a lot of acts and corralling them onto a particular land, sure.
Committed against Native Americans from Native Americans themselves, obviously. Yeah, that happened, obviously, throughout the historical timeline, but that didn't happen at Thanksgiving. And it's interesting because, do you know when Thanksgiving was recognized officially as a federal holiday? So this is why I actually think it's the least racist holiday out there, because it's proactively a holiday designed to symbolize unity. It was Abraham Lincoln who wanted to, after the Civil War, after some... Here, do you mind if I pause real quick? Because I don't have that kind of pole. I assume there's a hunchback up there who has an Antifa face mask. So after the Emancipation Proclamation, actually very soon after, Abraham Lincoln thought it would be a good idea to have a national holiday that symbolized unity for all Americans at this point, black Americans, white Americans, and so they did look back to that 1921 original Thanksgiving that symbolized the old world converging with a new world in 50 years of peace. Okay. So in looking to create a unifying holiday across all racial...
It wasn't Andrew Jackson like a super racist, so isn't he known for killing Native indigenous people? Okay.
Divides. He looked to a moment in early American history, before we were officially a country, where that happened as well. So that's why we celebrate Thanksgiving.
But even if something proactively promotes unity, if there are people who don't feel that way, then those people were marginalized and affected by the acts of barbarism that you said happened.
But not by Thanksgiving. Did it happen throughout history? Sure. But not by Thanksgiving.
But if Thanksgiving is about a moment of unity between pilgrims and Native Americans, but the rest of the time that those two peoples interacted was filled with violence and inequality, then why is it just that day?
Well, a couple of things. First off, it wasn't the rest of the time.
It was most of the time. No. Millions of Native American people died because of colonial people coming over.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, kind of nay-nayed their land. There's also some like weird show with Jason Momoa in it that's about like the setup of trade routes and like the whole. It's such a complicated relationship that I think we've had with indigenous people historically. I know I'm referencing a TV show, but frankly, he was the worst part of the show. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but he was fucking garbage. Sorry, Jason Momoa. The rest of the people were pretty decent. It's such an interesting, like delicate balance between them. But like ultimately, we did come over, we did take their land, and they did take a fucking fat L. I'm sorry, that's very insensitive. But yeah, I can understand why indigenous people will be very frustrated and upset with the colonialism for sure, and that's what Thanksgiving means to them. I get that. That's understandable. Just waiting for this. There we go. Thank you so much for the medium gut. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's estimated actually about 50% of Native Americans.
That's half the people. That's a lot of people.
Do you know how many of the settlers?
American people died because of colonial people coming over.
Yeah, well, it's estimated actually about 50% of Native Americans.
That's half the people. That's a lot of people.
Do you know how many of the settlers were wiped out?
They came here.
30%. So, in other words, it's not a genocide.
It is a genocide.
Well, it's actually not a genocide by definition.
I don't think it matters as a genocide. Listen, I don't think that we should just go back to normal and like give all the land back and then go back home or whatever. Reality is that shit, like bad shit happened in the past, and we can only move forward and do better. That's it. You know, we should maintain, you know, our country and all that other stuff. But to say that like we settlers, I guess I'm not really a settler. I came over, my family came over in like the 40s, but to say that like that it doesn't make sense that Crowder is so, he's like, well, it's not genocide technically, it's like a war, but like, yeah, because we were stealing their land. And you can acknowledge that we did bad shit while still saying that we should stay with what we got. Like, you know, it's so weird. You know, like if somebody came over now to try to take over America and like, let's say 50% of us died and 30% of them died, would he be like, well, technically it wasn't a genocide, it was more of a war? It's like, well, I feel like you'd feel threatened by us being taken over. Right, so
they brought the disease.
Well, hold on a second, guys. Let's just keep the conversations between two folks. They did bring disease. Yeah, they did bring disease with them, and it did wipe out quite a few Native Americans. That was actually before the Thanksgiving. You know, that's why they came back to an abandoned village. I'm sure you're aware of that because they were wiped out by diseases. Well, largely they hadn't encountered because they hadn't domesticated most animals yet. You know, they hadn't domesticated horses. They had no contact with horses. They were technologically very encountered because they hadn't domesticated most animals yet. You know, they hadn't domesticated horses. They had no contact with horses. They were technologically very regressive. They didn't use the wheel. So what happened was there was a moment of peace for 50 years. We had a very long portion of history that was very peaceful with Native Americans. There were multiple alliances between new settlers and Native Americans because Native Americans were warring with each other. And
yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, okay.
We do choose, though, as a holiday to celebrate this moment of unity. We choose to celebrate a positive moment. I mean, you can look at Veterans Day or Memorial Day. Well, there are horrible actions.
Yeah, I feel the same way about those holidays.
Oh, you do?
I do.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I just feel like there's a blatant. So, because what it sounded like to me, like saying, he's using a lot of words to say that like they kind of deserve to get taken over because they were technologically inferior. And I just kind of disagree with that. I think that's a shitty perspective. Again, I don't think we should go back and like give people like, here's your land back by. But I think that that's kind of a shitty perspective to have. And like a little, you know, obviously insensitive. He wouldn't care about that. And it's good. Thanksgiving, cool holiday. But it's good to acknowledge the shitty things that we've done to indigenous people.
Same thing with 4th of July?
Yes.
Same thing with Christmas?
Yeah.
Ramadan?
And I wonder how stable those unions between these alliances were.
Muslim, yep.
Okay. Because obviously slavery is still practiced across the Islamic world. So
yeah.
Ramadan?
I feel the same way about those holidays.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Same thing with 4th of July?
Yes.
Same thing with Christmas?
Yeah.
Ramadan?
I'm Muslim, yep.
Okay, because obviously slavery is still practiced across the Islamic world. So you believe that?
True, it is. I think chattel slavery is still practiced in some Islamic areas. There's slavery still in America too. It's like a little different. I'm not talking about like wage slaves. I'm talking about like, you know, there's still some. So if you look at the statistics, like there's slavery across the entire world, different forms, like modern day slavery, like, you know, child sex trafficking and things along those lines.
Okay.
No, is it not?
I mean, it's practiced across the entire world, not just the Islamic
well, not the United States.
Well,
not nearly to the same degree in the United States. He's right about that.
Well, this is the United States versus the Islamic world, is it? It's the world, the Islamic world, all different kinds of parts.
Well, in comparison to, example, the settlers in modern America. The point is, but we're not celebrating that with Ramadan, are we? We're not celebrating the Spanish.
What is okay? So I'm trying to understand, like, what is Ramadan? Ramadan is a holy month of fasting, introspection, and prayer for Muslims, the followers of Islam. Okay. Thanksgiving is a day for giving thanks, but like it seems like there's a lot. Okay. So here's my thing with this whole thing going on, right? Thanksgiving associated with, you know, some limited peace treaty with the indigenous people, right? But there is some bad blood between like, you know, colonizers and indigenous people, right? We acknowledge that. But Crowder's saying, well, you wouldn't assign that to Ramadan, right? Even though there's slavery in that world. Okay, I think they're different because one's just a celebration of the religion, and the other one, I guess, I don't know. Because Muslims weren't oppressing other people, they were oppressing Muslims. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like it's different. I just don't think I can articulate why. Maybe that's what it is. I feel like it's a bit of a different thing. Is there anybody that's saying that Ramadan represents slavery in some capacity? Because I feel like nobody's saying that, but indigenous people are saying that they feel like their Thanksgiving celebration and the conversation around it is not historically accurate. And that they have a problem with like colonizers or colonialism sweeping across their world. I think that they're fundamentally different. Maybe I just can't articulate it that well. Okay. I personally wouldn't say that they're the same.
Inquisition when we celebrate Christmas, right? Christians committed some horrible actions. We're not celebrating war with Native Americans when we celebrate Thanksgiving. We're celebrating a moment of peace and unity because it shows that it can be done.
But those are like religious holidays. This is a holiday surrounding like a treaty between, I guess, English people, but colonizers and indigenous people, where the other ones are like religious holidays. And like, I think part of the problem is the misrepresentation of our engagement with Native indigenous people through Thanksgiving. Okay.
I think what people want is an acknowledgement that these things happened.
I've already done that.
Right?
Yeah.
Which, an acknowledgement of these racist things that did happen, and implying
but he like downplayed the fuck out of it, saying like basically they deserved it because they didn't have technology. So
maybe the narrative that we push isn't true, and that acknowledging that there was a disagreement and violence between these people.
Sure.
Yeah. That's fair.
I think people just want that acknowledgement, and by flat out saying Thanksgiving is not racist, I think a better way to say, I think you could say these things did happen, and this is what it's based on, and Thanksgiving has evolved into become something else.
I think that you could say Thanksgiving is not racist. The problem is when Crowder says it, he's downplaying. Right before, he's like, well, it wasn't a genocide. 50% of indigenous people died, and 30% colonizers. I personally, and he's like, so because it's basically a war, so it's okay. He used a lot of justifiable language without being explicit about saying it. If he was like, yeah, it's not racist, I don't think that's what it represents anymore, but I do understand like a tragic history, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But going on to be like, well, they didn't have good technology, so it's insinuating that they kind of deserved it.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to erase the opinions of Native Americans who suffered.
Well, who erased opinions of Native Americans who suffered?
And also, how many indigenous people? They said 50% of indigenous people and 30% of like colonial people. So what? Like, how many of them were there? I'm seeing 1961, the population of indigenous Americans had declined by 90 to 95%, or by around 130 million, according to GS. So this isn't even necessarily accurate what he's saying. So, did 130 million colonizers die as well? I feel like it. I don't know how many. How will I be able to get this statistic? European settlers killed 56 million indigenous people over. Okay, so some of them were just dying out, and some of them were killed. Okay, so 56 million indigenous people were over 100 years in South Central Northern America. Okay, how many settlers were killed? It's just like such a weird promotion of statistics. Okay, it's a great article with all the fucking ads. I don't even know if I'd be able to find this information. Because, like, if 30% died, but there's only 100 people that died, and, like, 50% of something else died, but there's 500 people that died. Like, obviously, yeah, there might be percentages died, but, like, overall, a lot more people may have died. I'm just trying to figure out, is there a way to find how many colonizers that died? If somebody could find it for me, like, give me a link, please, because I can't.
Not what I'm doing.
By saying Thanksgiving isn't inherently racist, you are erasing that.
So in other words, unless I say that Thanksgiving is inherently racist, I am erasing the opinion of all Native Americans.
Yeah, I mean, not all, but those who feel that Thanksgiving is racist.
Well, just because
they were the marginalized group, and we're pushing this narrative that they were happy to have.
For Thanksgiving, they were. And for 50 years, they were.
Okay.
So isn't that a good thing?
I've heard that dinner didn't happen.
It did happen.
Okay.
Not only, and I've also heard this, people try to go to the Winthrop Diaries later, and I believe it was in the 1630s, where they had Thanksgivings during times of war against the Pequots. But that wasn't all the same thing. They were thankful for during battle that they had fewer casualties. And so I think that's probably what you're conflating. They teach that often in school. I know it's kind of interesting that you say, we don't teach any of this. When I went to college, when I went to high school, I was only taught about colonialism and how awful the settlers were. I was never taught, for example, of all the warring between the tribes, of the cannibalism, of the scalping that they were doing. I was taught that they were peaceful.
I think I learned that as well. I feel like we learned that all that. I don't know. It's been such a long time. But
full of people, and these settlers came in and stole their land. When the reality was, they were warring, they were barbaric. We had many years of peace. We came in, we purchased land, we traded, we had a healthy trading relationship for a while. And
they were barbaric. They lived here. This was their land.
Listen, indigenous people probably were, I guess you'd consider say regressive based on standards, but that doesn't give the people the right to come and like take their land. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Again, these things happened and we shouldn't can't go back. I get that, but it just seems like it's like, yeah, they deserved it because they were. It just sounds like he's saying they deserved it because they didn't have a good culture and they were weak, and like you should be able to prey on weak people. That's what it sounds like he's saying here. Okay.
Yeah, they were certainly barbaric.
You could argue that the colonialists were barbarians for coming in and taking their land.
I certainly would say the colonialists were barbaric compared to us today, and I would certainly say that Native Americans were barbaric in their practices compared to the colonialists.
Well, just because you don't agree and understand with something doesn't make it barbaric.
Well, I just mean, the fact that they didn't have plumbing or use the wheel.
They didn't have plumbing?
No, they didn't have plumbing. The Romans
That
did.
doesn't make them inferior.
Well, the Romans did. Did the settlers have plumbing? I don't think so. So wouldn't that make the settlers barbaric? Okay. Why talk about the Romans did the settlers or the Europeans have plumbing? I don't even know. Okay.
No, it just means it's barbaric.
Okay.
When I'm talking about barbaric, I'm talking about less evolved technologically and societally.
Okay, so definition.
Yeah, but it just feels like you're using such a loaded word. I know people would be like, I don't care, facts, blah, 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 or, So barbaric means savagely cruel, exceedingly brutal, primitive, unsophisticated. If it just sounds like you're trying to be disrespectful. So if you're like, yeah, they were regressive, they weren't as they didn't have the same technological achievements as us, and you're acknowledging that's fine. But it just seems like he's trying to be as disrespectful as possible in this assertion. It just sounds like he's just trying to be antagonistic and disrespectful. That makes sense. That seems like a Crowder take, is to be as intentionally inflammatory as possible, and then hide behind coming off as like a reasonable person. Because I think we all know that calling somebody savagely cruel, especially an indigenous person, is disrespectful. But that's also a slur for indigenous people, is calling them savages. So, okay.
Rather than the connotation.
Yes, definition rather than the connotation.
So you seem to be someone who ignores connotations.
No, I don't.
Because Thanksgiving has a negative connotation in some people's eyes, but you're ignoring that connotation.
So does Christmas.
Yeah, so does Christmas. You don't talk.
Does it? I didn't know that. I never heard anybody that has a negative perspective of Christmas. What association of negativity is there with Christmas? I'm just curious. Compared to Thanksgiving, I don't think it's nearly the same.
About that either?
I do talk about Christmas. I love Christmas.
I just don't know. What about Christmas?
I think it's wonderful and should be celebrated. I know that you've made it clear that you disagree. You don't like Christmas. You don't like Ramadan. You don't like Easter.
Christmas is pretty based. I got to start Christmas shopping for my wife soon.
You don't like Thanksgiving. I believe that there are certain moments throughout American history, 4th of July, independence, that can be celebrated regardless of imperfections throughout history. And I think that's important to note. And I think that it's a good thing to honor. It's wonderful and should be celebrated. I know that you've made it clear that you disagree. You don't like Christmas. You don't like Ramadan. You don't like Easter. You don't like Thanksgiving. I believe that there are certain moments throughout American history, 4th of July, independence, that can be celebrated regardless of imperfections throughout history. And I think that's important to note. And I think that it's a good thing to honor and show that there can be a moment in time of peace. Because we had it for 50 years, regardless of the wars that happened before we came here.
Do centuries outweigh 50 years? Do you think Native Americans are thankful for being put on reservations, centuries after Thanksgiving?
Being given reservations after they lost wars? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like that. Come on, that. See, this is the thing. She's getting riled up, and then this is what happens. Crowder puts people into a position that they get riled up because he is intentionally trying to be insensitive while coming off as cool and respectful when he's not really. Listen, man, again, we're not going to go back, but I mean, they didn't get put on reservation. He's making it seem like it was charity to come over and diminish the native indigenous population by 90 to 95%. And then turn around and be like, well, here's some land. We'll give it to you, I guess. That's kind of shitty, right? If somebody came over and did that to us, I feel like we wouldn't have the same perspective. I just feel like you can, it's, obviously she's getting flustered, but this is the problem, is that he's an older guy, he's 30, so he goes onto a campus and he's well researched in his perspective, and which is true, but then also sometimes his sources aren't the most reliable. But he'll go there and he'll basically bombard people with information, and then he'll be as disrespectful as possible to provoke a response, and then he'll be he constantly is. I don't think anybody here would be like, yeah, it's pretty cool to go take over another country and then let them have some land. It's oh, okay. Jesus Christ. It seems very insensitive. Okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So you don't like any of the holidays, okay? And you say that I'm completely ignoring someone's opinion if I don't agree with something.
No, that's not what I said. I said that you're ignoring the opinion of marginalized people who the holiday affects, who the glorification of the holiday negatively affects, because it erases what they say happened to them. And they were here first, so they should have a say in what the narrative is about.
Yeah, I'm not saying they can't have a say. I don't believe it's a racist holiday.
But by erasing someone's experience, erasing someone's experience is a form of racism. Erasing someone's experience and reframing it in.
But I didn't erase anybody's experience.
But by saying it isn't racist, you are erasing someone's experience.
No.
Yes, you are. Inherently.
Incorrect.
Yeah, I think that this argument's just not going to get her a W over here. Like,
why?
That's not the definition of racism.
What's the definition of racism?
Definition of racism.
Some land was purchased. I guess so. I don't think all the land was like properly purchased. And also, a lot of the land was stolen. I guess maybe some of the deals were reasonable. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like so okay. Let's say that some of the land that was purchased was like it was done reasonably. Do you think that still justifies like the killing of like the active killing of 50 million indigenous people by colonizers? It seems like you're trying to focus on the part that makes it look a little okay, whereas I'm focusing on it in a proportional way. Some of it might have been purchased legally or whatever. But hey, you know what? Maybe some of it. But maybe the 50 million or 56 million people getting murdered or killed, right? Maybe that's bad to steal their land. Again, I get it, based land ownership taking him over and all that, but I just feel like you're downplaying it. Why can't you just acknowledge it was shitty and be like, but we can't change shit? You know what I mean? We should just move forward being as good as we can.
Is believing that somebody is inferior solely based on their race.
That's prejudice. Racism is institutionalized discrimination. Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm not an institution, so right now we're going with the individualized definition of racism.
You're ignoring the institutionalized
you just accuse me individually
racism.
of being racist.
You are.
So let me ask you this. Maybe we can find some common ground here because you said you love Thanksgiving, but you don't like the holidays. What should we do then? Right? Contact is made between two civilizations, for example. This happens, right? One has rifles and one has wheels and horses, and they engage in peace. And then there are land disputes when land was purchased. So let's just get rid of what we have right now. What would you do? You would have no Thanksgiving? What would we do? What should the United States be? I'm genuinely curious.
I think just an acknowledgement, like everyone should acknowledge what happened.
Yes, I believe everyone does.
I don't think so.
I have.
Okay.
Well, he's been downplaying the fuck out of it. Like, I understand what he's saying. Like, hey, if these bad things didn't happen, we may not be in the good space we are now. That might be true. Again, though, we don't have time machines. Nobody's talking about going back and changing shit. It's just about being like, hey, it's pretty shitty. You know, I get it, but you know, it is what it is. You know?
So is it okay to acknowledge that there were acts of horrible evil and violence across all sides and still celebrate Thanksgiving for what it is?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's okay.
It's a good question. I haven't thought that far.
Do you think
probably should have, but
that it is better to celebrate Thanksgiving and recognize a moment of unity and encourage it both with the early settlers, the early pilgrims and the Native Americans, as well as after the Civil War? Do you think it's more productive to have a day to celebrate that and encourage that kind of unity and bridging that cultural divide, or do you think it's less productive?
I guess it's fine. Sure. I just think it's nice to acknowledge some of the shitty parts, I guess. That's really all some people are asking.
I think it's performative. So if something
like virtue signaling?
Yeah. So if something's performative, then does it really do the good that you're describing?
She kind of has a point, because I don't think that we give a fuck as a society about Thanksgiving that much. So we get together, we eat, but like a lot, like Black Friday shopping just fundamentally was like not about unity. It was like, oh, here's another holiday. Let's try to sell people as much shit as possible. And we really engaged in that. So the holiday probably has died. For the most part, people hit Thanksgiving and then the next day is Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess she has a decent point there.
What good am I describing?
The unity that you're describing. Like, if something is performative, then is that unity really there, or is it a performative unity which doesn't actually?
Well, I mean, you just talked about Thanksgiving cooking and spending time with family. I mean, that's unity right there, right? That's prioritizing giving thanks. I mean, I think that Thanksgiving, honestly, is the least exclusive holiday. Christianity would exclude people of other religions.
Secular.
Ramadan would exclude people of other religions. You know, you can take your pick from any of the religious holidays. Thanksgiving is be thankful for what it is that you do have, whether you're a Christian, whether you're Buddhist,
whether you're Muslim. Are you and your family going to talk about what happened to the Native Americans?
I mean, we've talked about it all.
I'm not going to do that. That's weird. Weird dinner conversation.
All throughout my life, and I learned about it in school.
Are you going to talk about
True. Black Friday 2020 was mid. That's true.
Are you going to acknowledge it at the dinner table?
I don't know. Do I have to?
You should.
Okay.
Right? No? Why not?
I didn't say I wouldn't.
You should.
Okay. Well, thank you for telling me what I should and should not do in my personal time.
You're welcome.
And you wouldn't think that is that at all in any way is overstepping bounds or being pushy?
I don't think it's overstepping bounds. I just think it's bizarre and unrealistic to talk to your family about like this stuff. But okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't.
All right. Well, maybe you should discuss with your family the history that you learned that wasn't accurate that you brought here to the table, and maybe you can all get an accurate account of what happened historically, and maybe discuss as well the acts of barbarism that still go on since you're Muslim across the Islamic world. Do you do that at Ramadan?
Yeah, I do actually.
You do?
I do.
So what do you discuss at Ramadan?
I discuss
indentured servitude.
I like to discuss how I think that Islam.
You discuss indentured servitude. It was just kind of funny.
itself isn't in certain Middle Eastern countries how it's unequal for women.
Sure.
And as a woman, and as a Muslim woman who was raised Muslim, I believe that that's unequal, and I will acknowledge that. I like to acknowledge how Saudi Arabia, for example, is guilty of hypocrisy. You know, the royal family has so much money.
I think you're talking a lot lower right now.
Yeah, I am.
Is it because you're concerned about criticizing Islam?
Bro, come on. This guy's such a fucking scum bitch. Dude, she's just talking about her fucking experience or whatever. You might think that I doubt that she actually talks about this at the dinner table. But this, like, you're just trying to be antagonistic. It's so boring, dude. Crowder is just like, he's just trying to dunk on SJWs, bro. He's not there for a reasonable discourse. Well, I know you're talking a lot lower. Like, could that be because I need you to be angry about something for content? It's like, bro, come on. It's so fucking boring. Holy fuck.
Acknowledge how Saudi Arabia,
maybe she's just trying to calm herself down because she's getting frustrated because you're trying to fluster her. Like,
example, is guilty of hypocrisy. You know, the royal family has so much money.
I think you're talking a lot lower right now.
Yeah, I am.
Is it because you're concerned about criticizing Islam?
Like, he's not even listening to what she's saying. He's waiting to have a response to be able to dunk on her. It's so fucking boring, bro.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe that's just ingrained in me.
Well, that's peculiar.
Yeah, it is.
That's a pretty base progressive argument of like, maybe I am speaking lower because I'm afraid of some of the negatives of Islam. Actually strengthens her argument a little bit. But okay.
Talking to you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your intellectual honesty there, and that you have those discussions. By the way, I don't think you need to do that at Ramadan. I think that enjoying Ramadan for the holiday that it is and celebrating it with your family is a wonderful thing.
Well, do you feel like you're overstepping your bounds by asserting what she should be doing on her holiday? You know what I mean?
Regardless of, listen, Muslims are imperfect, Christians are imperfect, Native Americans are certainly imperfect. If you go back to old colonial England.
When's the Destiny StevenCrowder conversation? That's the real question. I'd love to see that. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't it stand to read?
Because I'm just saying, like, listen, not everybody's for debates, and that's fine. But it kind of feels like sometimes you stay away from conversation with people that know what they're talking about. I think that talking to Destiny could be a very interesting conversation. I'd be for it, you know?
The Church of England are certainly imperfect, but the Irish are certainly imperfect. But it's not my business to tell them what they need to discuss on St. Patrick's Day.
Just when I saw that video and when I'm talking to Native American people and just heard about what happened, I just have empathy for what they say.
Sure.
And it just makes it difficult to not speak up for them.
I have empathy. Here's the thing. I hope you understand.
Like,
I have empathy as well, but you can also have empathy and understand that what people are saying is inaccurate. For example, I have a relative who's bipolar.
Yeah, it seems like she was checking out. She was like, okay, thanks for the conversation. He's just trying to keep the conversation going. Okay.
I'm not saying Native Americans are bipolar. This is an example. I hope you understand this, right? I have a relative who's bipolar, and he will describe situations or scenarios that are not real.
And you have empathy for him?
And I have empathy for him, but it's not necessarily accurate. And so I love him, and I care about him, and I let him know that I love him and I care about him, but I don't engage on the plane, on the wavelength that what you're saying is accurate.
I don't know. It's such a weird comparison. Because in this example, the person giving inaccurate information has a literal mental disorder versus indigenous people who don't. So it's not really a direct, like, one-to-one comparison. Something more comparative, I guess. I don't even know. But referencing somebody with a mental issue, in this case, like, yeah, you know, I have this, basically, I have somebody bipolar in my family, and they're delusional, and they say things that didn't really happen, and I just say, like, I understand you, and I accept what's happening to you, but, you know, I'm not going to listen to you because you don't understand reality. And then, like, how does that directly compare to people, like, indigenous people, unless you're insinuating that they have, like, a mental disorder? I know he said, well, I'm not saying that they have mental disorder, but then it's like, I'm not saying they have mental disorder, but maybe you do. I don't know. It was so bad. At the very least, it was a terrible dog shit comparison. Okay, is he trying to say that Native Americans' horrible experiences are purely emotional? Oh, that makes sense. Maybe that makes sense, because he's saying, I know a lot of, so I don't have a super incredible understanding of bipolar. I have to call my wife in for reference. But he might be saying that people who are bipolar are very black and white, I think. And so maybe they have very emotional responses to things, and they have an inaccurate interpretation of reality. So by comparison, indigenous people are just incredibly emotional and don't understand reality. Either way, it's kind of bad argument.
Okay. And I can
compare severe mental illness to the way people feel about.
We're not supposed to use the term mental illness anymore.
Yes, you
it's fine. It's okay.
are.
Depending on what it is, depending on how it's defined by the DSM-5.
I'm mentally ill.
What's defined by the DSM-5? Like, it's mental illness, mental disorder, mental issue. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, he's just trying to pivot the conversation away because he knows that she just shit on him, and now she's falling for the bait.
I use that term.
I'm definitely mentally ill.
This is where you. Oh, what term should I use? Oh, mental penis poop. Okay, so I don't think that you should compare a mental penis poop to, you'd ask him that question. That's what you follow up with. Because he doesn't have. I don't think he would ever have like, oh well, you're supposed to. He does. I don't think he has an answer to the question. If you did push him like slightly, he's very good at manipulating young college students.
But again, I was saying I'm not comparing bipolar to Native American. I was saying
you are.
One can have empathy without necessarily agreeing with the premise as far as its accuracy. So I can have empathy for Native Americans saying, hey, Thanksgiving to me represents all of these wars that occurred and these battles and genocide, and I can say, hey, I understand how you feel, but that's...
But also you got dunked on, loser. If you had a wheel, maybe you wouldn't have died.
It's not what Thanksgiving is celebrating. And I can say, I understand how you feel, but there also wasn't mass genocide committed if you actually look at it.
There was mass genocide committed.
I mean, like, there's just people died and colonizers came over and took over the land. Like, I don't know why this is such a weird understanding for him.
Definition, it wasn't genocide. There were wars and one side won. One-sided war, mind you, but there was by that definition.
A one-sided war, yeah.
There was genocide with the Mohawks and the Mohicans, the Algonquins and the Iroquois. I mean, they would
maybe, I don't know,
cannibalize people in front of their family, right?
That's terrible. Yeah, that's bad. I'm not saying all indigenous people are good, or were good. I'm just saying.
If one of them
just come out and say like, I think it's okay to kill all these people, and at least I can respect the fact that you're being honest. But like, it's there's so many pivots, bro. Or there's just so many weird. It's the language. He's really playing the line. I guess he's doing okay at it.
Advanced technology. In other words, one of them were as advanced as the early settlers. This would all be Mohawk country.
Yeah, that's true.
It wasn't a peaceful culture. Everyone.
Yeah, but they would be defending the land that people were trying to encroach on, right? So, like, if I came to your house and I had a fucking bazooka and I was like, "Open that up, bitch," and he's like, "Well, I have a gun." It's like, "Well, I'll blow your fucking house up with my bazooka." And you're like, "Well, technically, you have the better technology." Hey, I can see this is now your house. Oh, okay. I'm coming over your house with a bazooka. I'm just kidding. I obviously would never do that. But you get my point.
This is human nature. And I think that taking a holiday and removing the grace from it, removing the beauty of this holiday, which is meant to symbolize unity and giving thanks, to simply re-inject what is human nature, acts of evil that occurred not during this holiday, but somewhere in the timeline, I don't think helps promote healing. I think if anything, it's divisive.
So we can agree that the
acknowledgement helps promote healing.
Do we agree that the idea of Thanksgiving in your head has shifted into something else? Not a celebration of, or not an erasure of racism, but a celebration of unity.
Yes,
is that what you think?
Thanksgiving is a celebration
of unity,
and it always has been.
But why
it's a
can't
celebration of giving
why
thanks.
can't it be a celebration of unity and like an acknowledgement of the erasure?
You can do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm arguing.
Yeah, I just think that if people are going to do that, it also needs to be accurate. So if people are going to teach, for example, and I think we would both agree, right, on college campus, you guys are certainly not taught that, oh, the settlers were great and it was peaceful. That's certainly not what's being taught on campus.
I had a good class.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. What was
Seems
your name
like
again?
Safa. Seems like no one can change your mind, so.
I appreciate it, Safa. Well, I thought that was a good conversation, no?
She was trying to get out of there a while ago. Okay, cool, I guess. She really wanted to get out of there pretty fast. Thank God, because that was kind of a little boring. No, nobody's going to be able to change his mind, because even if he's confronted with, like, actual facts and logic, he wouldn't concede to it. But okay. Okay. Based.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.